Everybody ready? Okay, hang on tight. Here we go. Welcome to Everything's Fine Probably. Usually we're chasing the news that you just missed, talking to experts about things you probably should care about, and trying gently to stop you from panicking about the state of the world in real time. But this week, we're taking a detour into the past. That's right, this is a history special. It's a bit like switching from Netflix to a documentary narrated by a slightly sarcastic British voice with all the good news you didn't know you needed. We're hopping on trains that invented both speed and delay, visiting the United Nations to see how cooperation can actually work, sometimes, and meeting figures like Oliver Cromwell, the man who banned Christmas, and William Blake, the poet who saw angels and trees and thought, yeah, we need more of this. We'll also celebrate dogs who literally save lives going back centuries, and the discovery of insulin, which turned diabetes from a death sentence into a slightly inconvenient lifestyle choice. And if you're thinking, well, hang on, why are they talking about the 1800s on a show about this week? Relax, well, tie it all in, sort of.
Are there any Nazis?
No.
Because most history documentaries feature Nazis, don't they?
Well, unless either of you are planning to drop in surprise Nazis, which some would say are the worst kind, then no, I don't think.
I think they've been done, haven't they?
I think it's fair to say that this is not going to be like a normal history documentary.
Okay.
Probably not. But, it might surprise listeners to know that, we planned this and we know what we're doing.
For sure, we do.
So, buckle up. It's history, it's absurdity, it's progress. There's going to be poor jokes, digressions, and bickering along the way, as we remind you that whatever you might have read in the press, heard on the telly, had thrust at you unbidden from the bowels of the internet, everything's fine. Probably. As you've already heard, Shelley and Stu are here with me.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi. I forgot to say last week, because from listening from the week before from the music special, and when I listened to it and I realised that I said Syd Bassett instead of Syd Barrett, and then I forgot to correct that last week.
Excellent. So for anyone who hasn't yet listened to the music special, listen to it so you can hear the mistake and this will make sense of it. Who is Syd Bassett? That's the big question.
I don't know. I mean, that's not who made Licorice All Sorts, is it?
No,
that's
not.
Bertie.
Bertie Bassett.
Well, Bertie took all the credit for it. I don't know if he did it.
Yeah.
It was made of licorice all sorts. I don't think he could have.
Yeah, no, he couldn't.
Basically cannibalism otherwise, isn't it?
It was kind of creepy, that thing.
Yeah. Didn't we sort of find out Syd Bassett was a couples therapist?
Oh, yeah.
You said he looked creepy. I'm sure he's not. He's a couples therapist.
So who were you referring to if it wasn't Syd Bassett?
Syd Barrett.
Okay. Of Pink Floyd fame.
Original Pink Floyd, yeah.
So anyway, check out Syd Bassett online for therapy, if that's your thing.
And check out Syd Barrett and original Pink Floyd for a bit of music history.
And I think that's all tidied up then, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I just thought I needed to fit that in at some point before we got too far away from that episode.
Yeah, time would have been utterly pointless, wouldn't it? It's almost pointless today, but...
Before we start, can I say hello to all our fans in America? Hello, American fans, especially those in Virginia. So our American fans make up 10% of our listeners now. So come on, everyone say hi.
Hi.
Hi, America.
I didn't mean to sound so enthusiastic then. Like, I am actually really grateful.
We've got lots of people in Virginia, or is it just one person in Virginia who keeps downloading the episode?
Well, if that is, then thank you.
So here's a fun fact. Humans have been relying on dogs for medical assistance for centuries. And what's amazing is they're still stepping up. Today's medical detection dogs can sniff out everything from Parkinson's to COVID with an accuracy that makes most lateral flow tests look like they were designed by guesswork. The lab report you really want is a Labrador. Shelley, tell us more.
Yes, so I really enjoyed looking into this because being a really massive lover of animals, but and also it's nice to not talk about cats just for once, because
So
I
there are
don't.
medical assistance cats.
Yeah, medical assistance cats. I can't quite see that happening, because usually the relationship with a cat is fairly toxic.
I've met a therapy rabbit before.
When you say you met one,
Yes.
what, just at an event? Were you networking?
No,
It was for your therapy.
in my line of work, people need to go to court, and this witness, she bought a therapy rabbit in a Victorian pushchair to keep her calm and relaxed. And while she gave her evidence, this rabbit was bouncing around the room and, kept her calm. So that that's that's an example of a therapy rabbit. I have heard of therapy ponies before.
I've met therapy ponies.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think they
have
take them
met
to the
therapy
hospital, don't
ponies.
they?
Yeah, I was at one of the hospice that's part of our trust, and they had therapy ponies. It was amazing. Anyway, back onto dogs. What we know of as the modern guide dog was actually sort of something that started around the First World War, because one day a German doctor named Gerhard Stalling was walking the grounds of a veterans hospital with a patient who had lost his vision. He was called away suddenly, and he left his German Shepherd with the man to keep him company. And when he came back, he actually saw the dog with the man, and he got a feeling that the dog was actually trying to help this man. And he was so impressed by that he actually decided to open the world's first guide dog school, which then led into there being branches of this all over Germany. But there is evidence of guide dogs existing far before this. So the earliest recorded example of a guide dog was actually discovered along with Pompeii. So they found in the Roman city of Herculaneum, there was a picture on a wall of a mural that showed a blind figure being guided by a guide dog. So this would have been about 79 AD, they think. So that's the first historical depiction of it. There's also a written account from 1247 that mentions Francis Assisi observing a blind man being guided by a little she-dog, or as we know now, a good girl. It has been suggested that the earliest surviving illustrations of guide dogs in Western Europe are around about the 15th century, but they also think there might have been some in the 13th century as well, where they actually, and I did actually find some of these pictures, and some of them are really weird. You know, those kind of odd medieval, not very anatomically correct drawings. And there were people, and they were depicted as blind because they had their eyes shut and they had a dog with them. But there was one, and it looked like this dog was like barking out a little laser at its owner.
A laser.
Well,
Oh,
that's how it looked to me. It was
oh,
weird. It was like this
yeah.
orange line coming out of its mouth. I don't know what that was supposed to mean.
Yeah, because the owner wouldn't be able to see that, would they? The laser.
No.
So it's not.
Oh, maybe it was a corrective eye
Yeah,
laser.
that's kind of where I was going. Yeah, yeah, maybe.
That was so the first ever depiction of corrective eye surgery is in the 13th century.
It'd be more advanced by now.
Yeah, you would. Yeah.
And so the first known attempt to train guide dogs that happened in a hospital for the blind in Paris in 1780, and also a blind sieve maker. I really should have checked what that meant before I wrote that down. So in Vienna was also said to have trained a dog so effectively for his own use that people thought he was sighted. So he was really good at making sieves, and the dog was obviously making the sieves as well.
Are you saying
So
sieves?
sieves, as in things that you sieve stuff through.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought it meant.
I thought you said Sith, like as in
Like
Star Wars.
And I thought you said sif, as in short for syphilis.
Oh, so they're sieves.
Sieves. Yeah, it was a sieve maker.
All right. That's quite niche, isn't it, for a business?
Yeah. It's possible the dog was
make them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Then in the 19th century, there was some like concept of guide dog training in print. There were little things around that were already, but there was nothing really sort of solidly established. The first school that was opened up by the German Dr. Stalling was actually shut down in the end. Unfortunately, apparently this was due to the quality of the dogs. But I'm kind of wondering what happened, like why, what was so bad that they had to shut the school down.
Well, you're saying the quality wasn't very good, so the dogs were like taking them across roads and people getting run over, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Or they
Yeah.
kept stopping to like lick their balls or something.
Well, maybe.
Maybe they were just shoddily made and bits of them kept dropping off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you make the dogs.
Oh, I
They're
don't know.
they're real.
The guy made sieves. Maybe he was making
No.
knockoff dogs as well, and
Well,
that was the poor
well,
quality.
who knows?
So this dog's made of sieves.
Yeah,
That's no
yeah.
bloody good.
Like civil
This dog
power.
looks like it was made by a blind person.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but there were other schools that had already opened up in Berlin after that point, though. So basically, Germany was the place to get your guide dogs, and they were using German Shepherds
Yeah.
originally
Okay.
as guide
Yeah.
dogs. But this actually attracted interest from a dog trainer who was an American dog trainer called Dorothy Harrison Eustace. Sorry, I really can't speak today. It's much better when I don't try it, when I haven't prepared, I think.
Well, you say that.
When you prepared and then left your notes at work.
Yeah, I deserved that. Thanks. Yeah, so she was a wealthy American who was training and breeding dogs for custom services in Switzerland, and she was doing them for like army and police. She then spent time like studying this school at Potsdam School in Germany, and then she wrote about it in an article, and that was then published in the United States in 1927. After she published that article, she then received this letter from someone called Morris Frank, who was a 19-year-old from Tennessee, and he was blind. And he said, thousands of blind people like me are bored being dependent on others. Help me, and I will help them. Train me, and I will bring back my dog and show people here how a blind man can absolutely be on his own. And then the following year, he traveled to Switzerland and he came back with a trained dog called Buddy. And then this attracted a lot of attention from journalists. So this sort of then pushed it kind of media wise, it pushed it out worldwide. So in 1929, they had the first American guide dog school. And then 5 years later, Guide Dogs for the Blind Association was founded in England. So that's how we first established guide dogs. But now it's really developed onwards because now we have lots of different kinds of assistance dogs. We now have disability assistance dogs that help people who have physical disabilities to do normal everyday tasks. Hearing dogs as well. So they will do things like alert their owners to noises and also provide them with company because it's very isolating being blind.
I actually saw a clip in a documentary where some dogs, they could smell when someone's about to have an epileptic fit.
Yeah, this
Like
is
push the owner on the floor, and this dog actually got them in a safe place and then knocked the medication off the sort of table, and it was amazing. So apparently
yes, true.
they can
They
sense
can
it, can't they?
smell like
Yeah,
the shape. Because the assistance dog that I met, it actually could tell if like her heart was she was going to go into arrhythmia or anything which could make her then pass out. So it was a similar thing that the dog would then get her to a safe place
yeah.
so that she didn't just suddenly collapse in the middle of the road or something like that. It was, and they can actually smell like the change in, they can smell it somehow. So
Yeah.
got therapy. There's a PTSD assistance dogs. I will probably need one of them when I get back to work in a couple of weeks and open my emails.
Well, sounds like dogs have been supporting us for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Truly our best friends.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that assistance dogs ever unionised,
Hmm.
that they could run the NHS better than most governments have managed?
Absolutely. I would happily have a dog as my line manager.
Maybe if we had like Labradors as GPs, patiently listening to symptoms while they eye out the biscuits. You could have poodles on reception, perfect hair, judging you for being squadron of dash hands zooming down corridors with test results in their mouths. Waiting times would vanish, morale would skyrocket. Okay, instead of getting your prescription, you get a tennis ball, but nothing's 100% perfect.
But sometimes you'd rather have a spitty tennis ball, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I think it's the
Yeah.
health we deserve. Stu's taking a slightly different approach to looking back through
Yeah,
history. You've decided to look at a couple of historical
I
figures.
have, and how they've shaped where we are today.
Fantastic.
So,
kick us off.
well, I'm sorry about this, but I'm going to start off talking about Brexit. Brexit, not the news headlines, not the parliamentary debates or the economic forecasts. Today, I'm going to talk to you about Brexit that happened 350 years ago. The Brexit that lived and breathed in the person of Oliver Cromwell. How much do you know about Oliver Cromwell?
Well, it's a controversial bloke.
He is controversial.
Here at Done, Panic to others, Christmas ruiner to most.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was about to say, didn't he ban Christmas?
Well, he did. So he was the man who abolished the monarchy and banned Christmas and had the worst hair in English history.
What a multitasker.
Google it. So what does Oliver Cromwell have to do with the 21st century political divorce? The answer, I believe, is everything, because Cromwell's legacy, far from being just a dusty chapter in a history book, is the very ghost in the machine of modern British politics. That's what I think. So the first connection is the most profound, sovereignty. We always remember those debates from those years ago about sovereignty and what it means to Britain. Well, Brexit at its heart was a debate about who holds ultimate power. Is it the people? Is it our parliament? Or is it a distant, unelected body in Brussels? The cry of take back control was a simple, powerful, and deeply historical slogan. It was a direct echo of the 17th century English Civil War. So before Cromwell, England was a kingdom defined by a divine right where the king was the source of the law. But in the 1640s, Parliament with Cromwell at its head said, "No, the power of the law comes from us." That's how he spoke. So it comes from the people we represent. They didn't just win a battle, they fundamentally rewrote the constitutional DNA of the nation. They asserted parliamentary sovereignty as the bedrock of the British state.
Well, they chopped off King Charles I's head, basically.
Well, yeah.
Not great for Charles, but revolutionary for the rest.
If you want to put it like that, yes.
And he had good hair.
Yeah, he did. Lovely, lovely locks. So let's fast forward to 2016, shall we? What was the central argument of the Leave campaign? That this sovereignty, this historical legacy, had been given away to the European Union, and that Brussels was making our laws. The Brexit vote was in many ways the ultimate expression of this deep-seated Cromwellian belief that our parliament must be the supreme and sole sources of our laws. The second connection was identity. So Oliver Cromwell, he was a fiercely proud Englishman. He actually came from Huntingdon. Didn't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
His Protestant faith and his English identity were intrinsically. His prostate. Easy for me to say.
His prostate.
His prostate.
That's why he was so grumpy.
Yeah, that's painful. His Protestant faith and his English identity were very much linked. He saw England as a nation with a unique destiny, a nation that was different from the Catholic monarchy and of continental Europe. His military campaigns and his foreign policy were a powerful assertion of this independent spirit. During the Brexit campaign, we saw a similar sentiment, a desire to define Britain, or more accurately, England, as independent and free from the perceived constraints and multiculturalism of a larger European project. There was this romanticized vision of a self-reliant island nation, a trading nation, looking forward out to the world, not shackled to a continent. This idea of a distinct national identity forged in opposition to external forces is a sentiment that finds its roots in the Cromwellian era. The big problem with Cromwell was Ireland. So his actions in Ireland are a scar on British history. His brutal campaigns and land seizures created a legacy of conflict and mistrust that still endures to this day. When we negotiate the Brexit deal, what was the most complex and sensitive issue? The Irish border. The question of how to reconcile the UK's departure from the EU with the fragile peace and open border in Northern Ireland. Cromwell, his conquest, boiled to the surface. It was a stark reminder that history is not dead. It is living and breathing. And the ghost of Cromwell was there in every discussion about the backstop and every debate about the Good Friday Agreement. So, what's the takeaway here? So the Brexit debate was not just a modern phenomenon. It was a collision of historical ideas, a political argument about sovereignty and identity that has been unfolding for centuries. Oliver Cromwell and his era are not the cause of Brexit, but they are the perfect lens through which to understand it. So,
we haven't learned a thing.
I'll mention as well something. I mean, I looked into Cromwell theory to do it. He also allowed Jews to return to England after 350 years in exile, which opened the door slowly to the multi-faith society we've got today. And he introduced Britain's first written constitution. That didn't last long, but you know, it was the beta version of parliamentary democracy. You've got to start somewhere.
And we were republic for 10 years, but then we realised we couldn't make it work, so we brought monarchy back.
But yes, Cromwell banned Christmas as well. No mince pies, no holly, no carols, nothing. Imagine if that had stuck. No office Christmas parties.
I would be all right with that.
Yeah, you wouldn't be cornered by Sharon from accounts while she shows you pictures of a labradoodle in a Santa hat. No photocopiers tragically abused in the name of festive spirit. No secret Santa where you end up with a novelty mug that says world's okayest colleague. And musically, no Michael Bublé thawing out every December like a crooning snowman. No Mariah Carey staking her annual claim on your eardrums. Supermarkets have no excuse to blow out Slade in October. You wouldn't even have to pretend to like mulled wine. You could just have a beer.
This sounds excellent.
I'm actually okay with mulled wine. I quite like it. I do sometimes feel like I'm never ready for Christmas again. I feel like it would be good if we could just have it every other year.
Yeah, I think
it would be more exciting.
Yeah.
I'm still financially crippled from the last Christmas.
Yeah, I 4 years, that'd be good, wouldn't it? Every 4 years. Because,
maybe making with Easter.
Yeah.
Easter would be like the Euros, and Christmas like the World Cup.
So I'm going to move on to William Blake next.
Please do.
Do you know much about William Blake, Shelley?
No.
Okay.
I know of William Blake.
I will tell you. So imagine this, everybody.
Okay.
All right. A crowd gathers in London not long ago. But it's not a political rally and it's not a rock concert. It's a graveside. And the people standing there are a comedian, a punk poet, a heavy metal singer, and an academic. What has brought these people together, I hear you ask?
What's brought those things together, Stuart?
Well, it wasn't politics and it wasn't fame. It was a poet who died almost 200 years ago, William Blake. Now, here's the question. Why does a long-dead poet still have the power to draw such a strange, diverse crowd? The reason is because William Blake is not just a voice from the past. He is a voice for our future. So Blake lived during the Industrial Revolution. He saw factories rise, chimneys blacken the skies, children forced to work as chimney sweeps. And he asked, what is the cost of progress? When he wrote about the dark satanic mills, he wasn't just describing buildings, he was naming a system that devoured nature, crushed workers, and silenced imagination. A bit like AI. Now think about this today. Climate change, corporate dominance, the algorithm deciding what you see, what you buy, even what you believe. Blake's world may have been lit by gas lamps and ours by phone screens, but his warnings echo straight into our time. So Blake wasn't just a poet, he was a rebel. He wrote, "I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's." 2 centuries ago, that was defiance against the church and state. Today, it's a challenge to Silicon Valley. Are we shaping our systems, or are we letting the systems shape us? When Blake declared the imagination is not a state, it is the human existence itself, he wasn't writing a slogan for a poster. He was telling us that imagination, vision, is not optional. It's what makes us human. In a world obsessed with profit, productivity, and efficiency, Blake says, stop, look, imagine. Here's what makes Blake unique. He belongs everywhere and nowhere. His hymn Jerusalem is sung at royal weddings and cricket matches. It's practically nationalistic, and yet he's also quoted by punk rockers, beat poets, and counterculture icons.
Alan Moore, U2, Patti Smith, they all owe something to Blake.
To name but a few.
I didn't know that he wrote Jerusalem.
Yeah, and it was actually it was a anti-nationalistic song. It was about his hatred of the British Empire and the wars. But today, people sing that and they think it's about national identity. But actually,
Yeah, it's weird because actually people were sort of saying it would be a better national anthem than our current national
it was
anthem.
actually very subversive at the time and is now. So when people are belting that out, they're actually decrying the British Empire, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, WI would have nothing to say about that, would they?
So Blake, he speaks across centuries because he speaks across divides. So he points straight at the problems we still wrestle with: inequality, environmental collapse, technological control, and the hunger for imagination. He tells us the world is broken, but he also tells us something else, something more important. It can be reimagined. Blake's vision reminds us that to change the world, we must first dare to imagine it.
There you go. He was dismissed in his own lifetime as mad. Today, he'd have a TED Talk headline with 3 million YouTube views to his name, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, you know, he was very much an outsider. People considered him mad. But I suppose in this day and age, he would, you know, they feel maybe he had some kind of schizophrenia because he had lots of visions. And if you ever check out some of his famous paintings, they are very imaginative and bold and bright. But he stuck to his path, and no, he never backed down. Never backed down.
Again, he saw angels in trees. I see pigeons in Greg's. Who's the visionary? Well, I'd like to talk about Britain's favourite expensive way to be late, the railways, because 2025 marks a very significant anniversary in their history. Now, railways are one of those things we take for granted. No one's very excited about them, but they're always just there, like Mrs. Brown Boy's Christmas specials. But the story of the railway actually begins with one very specific train, the great-great-grandparent of every cancelled service, every "this train will now terminate" at announcement, and every sad £6 panini you've eaten on a platform. September the 27th, 1825, County Durham, a Quaker businessman, Edward Pease, had a coal problem. Basically, he had too much of it and not enough efficient ways to shift it. We've all been there, right? 200 years later, that sounds like a global climate problem, but back then it was more of a "my horse is tired" situation. So Pease brings in George Stephenson, who at this point's the scrappy engine guy from the northeast. And together they roll out a contraption called Locomotion Number 1, and on September the 27th they haul the world's first public passenger train from Sheldon to Stockton. About 450 people piled on, which means Britain invented both railways and overcrowding on the very same day. That's British engineering efficiency for you.
Makes you feel proud, doesn't
Doesn't
it?
it ever? Now, the railways didn't just move lumps of coal and people with funny hats. They literally changed time itself. Because back in the 1840s, every town had its own local time. Bristol was 10 minutes behind London. Liverpool was 25 minutes off of that. That's fine if you never leave home.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So every town had its own time.
They're just, whatever time. I mean, they're all roughly in the same area, but it wasn't particularly.
But why? That's amazing, isn't it?
Well, because is it just because there wasn't like
just
a Greenwich Mean
nice way of
Time?
doing it, and no need to do it.
So if you went to Bristol and they go, you're late, I go, no,
Yeah.
not according.
No, I'm actually on Bristol time.
Because there's no way to do it.
Oh, but
But yeah, imagine that. You're trying to print a timetable and all that nonsense is going on. So by 1847, the railway said, right, everyone's on GMT now.
That's incredible. So
the reason for train is late to this day is because the Victorians forced the clocks to be on time.
So they forced everyone into standardised time.
Standardised time in this country.
Now, that is, I just didn't know that. I'm quite.
What would it be like if we didn't have that now?
Now, if you now skip forward 200 years, as we can, you'd assume the country that invented rail travel would have perfected it. But no, our rail system's still a glorious mix of Victorian engineering and Kafkaesque scheduling. We've somehow created a system that's simultaneously too expensive and too unreliable. It's like they crossbred delays and fare hikes and let them breed again, which is how you end up with an off-peak super saver anytime advance return that costs more than your rent. So where you might be wondering is the good news in all of this?
Split tickets.
Well, there's a
good
particular nightmare
saver
to make it rich. Now, 2025, it's the bicentenary of that first run, and there are actually reasons to celebrate. There's a new 26-mile trail following the Stockton and Darlington route, so you can walk the route of that first journey. The museum at Shildon's expanded. Derby hosted the Greatest Gathering. That's basically Comic-Con for locomotives. 50 engines lined up, locomotion number 1 among them. Crowds of train nerds losing their minds. Truly a sight to behold. And look, without the railways, we wouldn't have some absolute classics of cinema. For example, the stone cold masterpiece, Snakes on a Train. Not Snakes on a Plane, that was Hollywood. This was a knockoff, straight to DVD, special effects that looked like they were done in Microsoft Paint, and a plot that falls apart faster than the replacement bus service.
Well, is that real?
It is real. People might bang on about Citizen Kane, but no, this is the real
Was
deal.
it set in Britain?
Yes.
Was there a delay?
Look, watch it. I don't want to give away the whole plot, but get hold of it if you can. So George Stephenson didn't just invent the passenger railway in 1825. He invented the dream that one day CGI boa constrictors would terrorise a buffet car. The biggest story, though, is what railways are doing now. They started with coal and soot, and 2 centuries later, they're a climate solution. This year, Network Rail signed a 14-year deal with EDF Renewables to run stations, depots, and offices on solar power. That's 64 gigawatt hours a year, enough to cover about 15% of their non-traction electricity. Meanwhile, India has electrified 98% of its massive broad gauge network. It's aiming for net zero by 2030. Earlier this year, they even ran a fully electric service out of Dibrugarh, which is one of the furthest flung cities in the country. Speedrunning, what Britain kicked off 200 years ago, only better. So it makes a sort of nice circle here. Railways launched the industrial age, they forced the country to standardise time, and now they're one of the best tools we've got for decarbonising travel. The UK system, yes, still a mess. It's slow, it's pricey, it's occasionally ambushed by leaves, but it's also part of something much bigger. Every time you wedge yourself into a carriage, sit on a fold-down seat near the loo and pay £7.50 for a cheese sandwich, that's 200 years of history. That's a living legacy. You're riding the descendant of locomotion number 1, and whether you notice it or not, it's kind of magical. And it's only going to get better, because whatever the future of transport looks like, it'll owe something to those 450 passengers who climbed aboard locomotion number 1 in 1825, the first to discover that trains are magnificent and transformative, and just a bit late.
Yeah. What about the H2 thing? That's not going to happen anytime soon, is it?
I mean, Where do we even start?
Let's not talk about that.
With
So I
HFP.
do like to use train. I would use trains all the time if I
Ridiculous expensive.
yeah, I really will. I like traveling by train. I think it's the best way to travel.
Yeah.
I always like how it's socially acceptable to drink alcohol on a train.
At any time.
But
Isn't it?
it's not. You can't. If you were drinking alcohol on a bus, that would be a big no-no.
We get on the train, as we do
Yeah.
for rugby trips
Yeah.
at 9 in the morning,
Yeah.
open a can of
Yeah.
beer, no
Yeah.
one bats an eyelid.
But you can't drink on the tube, can you?
No.
And you can't drink on the overground one either, can you?
No.
But you can drink.
On the big main line.
Yes, yeah. So it's a very sort of niche benefit, that, isn't it? Yeah. Drinking on trains. Would you say that's the main benefit
And they
for you,
sell you
Shelley?
alcohol on the train. They
Mm.
have like cans and little bottles of wine and things.
Yeah.
It's
Luxurious.
very much on to an alcohol story, hasn't it?
Yeah. I can't see the problem with that, Jim. That's fine, isn't
So
it?
if trains are the future, which it sounds like they are, then we've got to get this together. They've got to be more affordable. Got to run better. That's where we should be investing.
I think the biggest problem I have with the trains, I don't actually find them particularly, the service runs particularly poorly, but God, it's expensive.
Yeah,
It's so
cost is
expensive.
prohibitive, yeah. You know, you can go from like London to Manchester and that's like £200. That's a lot of money, isn't it?
I can't remember where it was I was looking at going to, but it was going to be something like £400. If a Crest could fly cheaper than that.
Yeah.
Mm.
But there we are. 200 years down the line. It's changed. Has it improved?
In what respect?
Absolutely. I mean, the first trains changed time.
Yeah.
Well, the modern trains changed.
Well, they've changed the very nature of being a train itself into a replacement bus instead. So 2025, a year of anniversaries. It's been 105 years since the League of Nations was founded and 80 since the United Nations came along to sort out the mess. That's basically the gap between your dodgy pilot episode and your big budget Netflix reboot. So this all starts with the League of Nations. You familiar with the League of Nations?
Yes, I'm aware of the League of Nations.
That's all kicked off in 1920 after World War I with this big central idea. Instead of wars, why don't we just have meetings? Which sounds sort of noble, I suppose, but I've worked for and with big corporates, and the idea of lots of meetings is going to achieve anything sounds really sort of sweet and naive, doesn't it?
But if you
I know at work, I think I sometimes, when you get like have a meeting that could have been an email. Now I'm going to be thinking, oh, we've had a meeting that could have been a war.
Yeah.
But
if we tie ourselves up in meetings, then we aren't going to have time for wars.
Well, you would have thought so, but if this idea was we're going to talk Mussolini into calming down over some biscuits, well, you'd be surprised to hear it didn't really work.
Oh.
The whole thing was the brainchild of US President Woodrow Wilson. That was his big idea, his baby. He went around Europe selling it like a dodgy timeshare, and everyone signed up except for the US Congress. They took one look at it and went, "Now sounds a bit foreign." So the country that invented the League never then actually joined it.
Oh.
So that's kind of like inventing Nando's and then saying, "Actually, I don't like chicken," or creating FIFA and then refusing to watch football, which, to be fair, might be quite a good idea. So why? This was because back in 1920, American politics said, "Foreign wars, foreign commitments, no thanks, we're isolationists now." They wanted none of it.
Well, they want to be again, don't they?
Well, come on to that.
Echoes of the past.
Absolutely. So this meant that the League launched without its big star player. It's like forming the Avengers without Iron Man. Now we fast forward today, it feels like deja vu, doesn't it? Because in 2025, Trump's back in the White House and he's flirting with taking America off the world stage, which is ironic because without the UN, Trump wouldn't even have a stage to storm off of. So back then, without America's weight, the League was a bit limp. It wagged its finger at Japan invading Manchuria, at Mussolini stamping on Ethiopia, at Hitler doing Hitler things. The League's response was essentially, "Oh dear, let's write a strongly worded letter." So the diplomatic equivalent of "I'm not angry, just disappointed." Works on your kids, not so much so with fascist regimes. So, 1945, up comes the UN. New branding, more members, and actual enforcement mechanisms. America's signed up this time, probably because they didn't fancy missing out on the sequel. The whole thing has lasted 8 decades now. That's longer than EastEnders. And just like EastEnders, it's occasionally baffling. It's filled with people shouting and storylines that go on way longer than they should. Now, I'll be the first to admit that, like the EU, the UN is far from perfect. The Security Council veto is basically like giving 5 countries reverse Uno cards for life. But right now, in 2025, it's still doing proper good, and I'd just like to run through some of their recent greatest hits, if I may. So first up, COP16 in Rome. The UN got everyone together to agree $200 billion a year for biodiversity by 2030. That's serious cash for protecting the planet. They even set up the Cali Fund, which makes pharmaceutical companies who profit from genetic resources cough up money. So half of that goes straight to Indigenous communities who actually look after the biodiversity in the first place. Imagine paying the people who do the work. Revolutionary.
It'll never catch on.
Never catch on. Second, the Ocean Conference. In Nice, Pacific nations have created the Melanesian Ocean Reserve, which is over 6 million square kilometres of marine protection. France threw in another 4.8 million kilometres square. The EU promised €1 billion. They launched a Quiet Oceans Coalition to deal with noise pollution. Great news for whales, dolphins, and anyone who's ever had to live next door to a bloke learning drums. And third, glaciers. 2025 is the International Year of Glaciers Preservation. Sounds like a BBC4 documentary with Brian Cox whispering in the snow, but it's actually a UN campaign to track ice loss, warn of glacial hazards, and protect water supplies. And there's real urgency needed here. Scientists say that nearly 40% of the world's glaciers are already doomed, even if we stop emitting tomorrow.
Really?
If warming goes over 1.5 degrees Celsius, that could be 75%. On the plus side, every 0.1 degrees Celsius we shave off saves 2.7 trillion tonnes of ice. World's biggest slush puppy.
Well, we should do that then.
Well, you would have thought so, wouldn't you?
Well, we should.
I know, Stuart.
Why isn't anyone doing this?
Well, you and I are working on it. That's the point. So look, the league flopped.
We're going to lose all the oceans.
No, we're going to have more ocean. We're going to lose all the ice. That means the ocean's going to rise. We're going to lose all the land.
No, they're going to be dead oceans though as well.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to lose the land. This is disastrous.
Yes, and this is why the UN are trying to do something about it. So, yes, good. UN is still somehow holding things together. Not perfectly. It's more like duct tape and stubbornness, but enough to matter. Back to Donald, briefly, and the ridiculous man baby has been muttering about cutting UN funding, ditching climate deals, and generally behaving like the loud bloke in Wetherspoons who insists, I'm not paying the bill, I only had chips. But things have changed since the 1920s when America stayed out of the League, because that helped it to collapse. In 2020s, if America storms out the UN, it won't collapse, because the rest of the world's learned to get on without it. It won't necessarily be pretty, but it'll keep working, which is kind of like the British railway system.
Yeah, nicely done.
Shelley, why don't you pick us up? You're going to talk to us about insulin, the tiny hormone that saved millions of lives and kept more birthday cakes in circulation than any other scientific discovery in history. And if that's not good news, I don't know what is.
Yeah, it was very good news. I'm a big fan of insulin. I mean, just to make it sort of clear, when I start talking about it, it is really the main way it was a lifesaver was for people with type 1 diabetes, which isn't definitely not a lifestyle choice, Jim.
So, fair enough. Stand correct.
So yeah, the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes is like type 2 is something that people tend to usually develop later in life, but that's to do with insulin resistance. But it is a bit stigmatized because that's to do with people see that as, oh, you get that if you're overweight and you don't look after yourself. It's not as simple. It's something that you normally start getting when you're older, but you do still produce some of your own insulin. It's just the insulin.
So type 2 is insulin resistance.
Yeah.
Type 1 is
that's an autoimmune condition. So it's got nothing to do with your health or anything. You don't really know. It's when your immune system has basically destroyed the cells in your pancreas that produce insulin.
So they're like separate illnesses, really, aren't
They
they?
are completely separate. Yeah, it's just that for like a lot of the symptoms would be very similar, because if it make your blood sugars go high, and then you're going to start excreting glucose in your urine and things. But type 1 is significantly more dangerous, because if you don't have any insulin in your system, you are going to die. If people did used to contract type 1 diabetes, they probably would have had a matter of weeks, if that, to live. So it was a really big deal when they discovered insulin, and they isolated this. So it was back in actually 1889. Two German researchers found that when the pancreas gland was removed from dogs, we're back to dogs. See, these dogs actually sacrificed themselves to help with the discovery of insulin.
When
So
you say
another reason.
sacrificed themselves, it would be true to say they were sacrificed.
Yes, exactly. They were sacrificed. Yeah, it was going beyond being the ultimate good boy. So they found that then when they took this out, those dogs then developed the symptoms of diabetes. So that was how they isolated where the problem was coming from. And so they
Did
narrowed
they
it.
then treat the dogs?
They did eventually in 1910. They actually found that was when they discovered the chemical that was missing from the pancreas. And then they did actually try to isolate some of that to give to dogs. But then it sort of progressed from there on. Then in 1921, a biochemist joined a group working on purifying insulin so that it would be safe enough to be tested on humans. This has then led to, I seem to have actually lost a little bit of my research here. Oh, that's a shame.
So some stuff then happened. We're not entirely
So
sure.
some stuff has happened. I'm trying to find my little bit here, because what's happened is I'm actually missing who discovered insulin, which is quite significant.
I would have thought so. Stu's on
Yeah.
it.
Would you like to know
Yeah.
who discovered insulin?
And how old they were, please.
Yeah, I'll try and find an age for
How
you
old
as
are the dogs?
well.
How
Oh,
old are the dogs?
okay. So it was actually a Canadian surgeon called Frederick Banting who discovered the insulin, and he realised that removal of insulin, like they broke down the pancreas and found that the cells that produced insulin. So that's the person who discovered it. He was quite important. So then it was then after that that they purified insulin.
I know who did that. James B. Collip.
So you all seem to know more than I do. Oh, it's okay. No, I did know that. James Collip, a biochemist. He's the person who purified it so that it would be safe enough to test in humans. So then the first test was actually done in 1922 on a 14-year-old boy called Leonard Thompson, who was dying of type 1 diabetes. And then within 24 hours of being given this first insulin injection, his dangerously high blood sugar levels dropped. But he did actually develop an abscess, though, from where the insulin was injected. So the first insulin they got was from dogs, but then when they started developing the purer form of insulin, this was actually from cows. So they were awarded the patent on insulin. After this, it kind of developed then in 1923. They had the patent on insulin. They started mass producing it as well, so that this could then be given to people worldwide. Banting, Collip and Best were awarded the patent, but then they actually sold all of the patents to the University of Toronto for $1 each. And Banting actually said, insulin does not belong to me, it belongs to the world. He wanted everyone who needed it to have access to it.
That's amazing. But so why isn't that the case now then? Because like in the States, it costs so much money, doesn't it?
Because insulin's not the same as it was now. People, because that went on, they developed like human insulin, synthetic insulins. So every time they develop, like say, a new form of the drug, then that gets a whole new patent on it, and it becomes something that can, which is actually marketed massively. So yeah, there is a little bit of a doubt. I mean, it's amazing what has actually happened with the progression of the treatment of diabetes, because we don't just have, like, say, for years and years, like, it's still, I was actually still finding patients that had porcine and bovine insulin, and they've only just stopped producing these things now. But then we've got, like, mass produced synthetic insulins now that do all sorts of different things, and they have different profiles on them as well. So you're not just whacking a load of insulin in, they have timed profiles and do different things. And now we've also got all the technology that goes with it, insulin pumps, things like that are really improving people's lives. If I think about how most people with type 1 diabetes probably feel, like, yeah, it's great that they have all of this stuff, but I think what they would really like is a cure. So if that can be, if anyone could come up with that, that would be the best thing. I did actually find out not that long ago that H.G. Wells had type 1 diabetes.
Oh,
And he actually was the founding member of Diabetes UK.
did not know that.
Mm,
Know
yeah,
that.
it used to be called the Diabetic Association when he established it, but he set it up to help give people in the UK access to treatment for diabetes.
I was just looking here. It said in 2021 there was a study, and a price in the US for a vial of insulin was $100, compared to the UK of $7.52. So it sounds like there's a lot of money to be made, doesn't there? In
Yeah.
basically keeping people alive. The markup on that. So clearly, it's quite cheap to manufacture it, right?
But I mean, we're this is why we are lucky that we have the health service, because the health service is kind of protecting us from the cost of that in so many ways.
Yeah. So when there's noises out there telling us to adopt the American style,
No, don't.
it would be a road to ruin, wouldn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're back to then, can you afford to get healthy? And if you're not,
Yeah.
rich, you can't. So I suppose what we're saying is it's not perfect. Access around the world is quite patchy, but it's a genuine bit of history we should be grateful for. And that's our history special for this week. Trains that invented both speed and delays, leaders who hated Christmas, poets who chatted with angels, dogs saving lives since ancient Rome, and insulin keeping the birthday cake industry alive. Honestly, if history taught us anything today, it's that progress is messy, humans are weird, and sometimes the best discoveries come with a side order of that. Before we go, let's get real for a second. If you've been listening, sharing, liking, tweeting, or just quietly judging us in your head, then thank you. You have pushed this still relatively new podcast into the top 10% of downloaded podcasts. That's right, the top 10%. So please keep spreading the good word. If you like what we're doing, please jump on the socials and tell us what's on your mind. And here's a little teaser for next week. We'll be joined by Irene Vale, neuroscience coach extraordinaire, who will help us figure out what's actually going on in our brains, and maybe help us to unlock some more reasons to be cheerful that don't involve cats. So from all of us here, thank you for listening. Thank you for laughing or groaning or nodding sagely in agreement. And until next week, remember, everything's fine. Bye.